The opening week of the 2025-2026 NBA season has been incredible, with multiple 40-point games, a couple 50-point games, and some real close finishes. We are in for an incredible NBA season. Hello everyone and welcome back to Step Back with Zach, and in today's Week 1 recap. Before we go any further, please don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. My goal is to hit 50 subscribers by the end of the year, so your subscription would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. Just so it's easy for you to follow along, I will be putting graphics up on the screen. Now, the teams that are on the left of these graphics are the teams that won during the night, and the numbers that are in brackets are their win-loss record after the game. Night 1 started off on a historic note, where this was the most watched opening night in 15 years. Our first game was slated between the Oklahoma City Thunder, the reigning champions, and the new-look Houston Rockets, where we saw an immediate instant classic as this game went into double overtime and the winning Oklahoma City Thunder only won by a single point, winning 125-124. SGA, the reigning MVP, started off really slow as he finished the half with only 5 points, but ended up finishing with 35 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Chet Holmgren also started incredibly, where he made his first 7 shots and was involved with 13 of the team's first 15 points. An incredible sign of hopefully a good season from Chet Holmgren. And on the other side of the ball for the Houston Rockets, Alperen Sengun absolutely played incredibly, as he finished with 39 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists, that 39 points being the most points scored in a Houston Rockets season opener, and he hit a career high 5 threes on 8 attempts. Incredible efficiency from him. Now, their biggest move, Kevin Durant, kind of played a pretty mediocre game, having 23 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists in his Houston Rockets debut. He made a couple boneheaded plays where we know at the end of the first overtime period, he tried to call a timeout when Houston didn't actually have any. This would result in OKC getting a technical free throw and the ball back, I believe. However, the referees did not notice that Kevin Durant was calling timeout in time, so didn't matter. But ultimately, as I said, OKC ends up winning this game 125-124 in double overtime. Game 2 of the night, we had a battle between the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers. And this one again was another great game where the final score ended up being 119-109 in the Golden State Warriors' favor. Jimmy Butler led the way for the Golden State Warriors, finishing with 31 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. And he also shot 16 for 16 from the free throw line. Stephen Curry of the Golden State Warriors also contributed 23 points of his own on 3 for 9 shooting from beyond the arc. And on the other side for the Los Angeles Lakers, we had Luka Doncic put up an incredible 43 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists, which was the third most amount of points in franchise history in a season opener, following only Elgin Baylor, who dropped 52 points back in 1959, and Kobe Bryant, who scored 45 points back in 2007. Austin Reeves also played really well, where he contributed 26 points and 9 assists on 9 of 16 from the field. The daily leaders. Luka Doncic scored the most points in a game, where he dropped 43. Steven Adams of the Houston Rockets had the most rebounds with 13. The most assists were tied between Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and Draymond Green, all having 9. Steals was led by Cason Wallace of the OKC Thunder, who had 4. Blocks was tied once again between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the OKC Thunder and Draymond Green of the Golden State Warriors with 2. Turnovers was led by Austin Reeves, who had 5. And 3-point field goal makes was Alperen Sengun and Buddy Hield, who both had 5. And ultimately, my player of the night, despite the loss, was Luka Doncic. Night 2, we saw an incredible 12-game slate where every single other team, except the Denver Nuggets and the Indiana Pacers, played on this night that hadn't played in night 1. Now, I'm not going to put these games in any particular order. They're just what I've put down. So here we go. We saw the San Antonio Spurs take on the Dallas Mavericks in Dallas, where this one was not competitive at all, and Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs absolutely steamrolled the Dallas Mavericks, ruining Cooper Flagg's NBA debut. Victor Wembanyama finished with an incredible 40 points, 15 rebounds, 1 assist, and 3 blocks. On 15 for 21 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and 0 turnovers. Stephon Castle also contributed an incredible game, where he finished with 22 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists, and he had so many deflections in this one as well, and he was the primary defender on Cooper Flagg, who is considerably taller than him. San Antonio Spurs' second overall draft pick, Dylan Harper, also, I think, was the better rookie in this one, where he finished with 15 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists in his NBA debut. Now, on the other side for the Dallas Mavericks, a really lackluster performance from everybody. I don't think there was a single person that played well, as Victor Wembanyama completely had them in a chokehold. Anthony Davis finished this one with 22 points and 13 rebounds on 7 for 22 from the field. For a very low true shooting percentage, I don't remember what it is right now, but I know I've got it in this graphic. So there it is. And Cooper Flagg's NBA debut, he finished scoring 10 points and he had 10 rebounds as well. And as a Victor Wembanyama fan, this was obviously my game of the night. This game really got people thinking, is Victor Wembanyama the best player on the planet? Probably. The next game that I have here is the New York Knicks versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, the big title favorites out east, the Titans of the East, if you will. Now in this one, Cleveland is without their star point guard, Darius Garland, and their two better wings, DeAndre Hunter and Max Strus. However, ultimately, the New York Knicks ended up winning this one 119 to 111, showcasing a very different style of offense to what we're used to with the New York Knicks, where their starters didn't have to play 45 minutes a game, and there was a lot of ball movement, and Jalen Brunson's first shot was a catch-and-shoot corner three. Mike Brown's really doing great things with this New York Knicks team. OG Anunoby led the way for the New York Knicks, scoring 24 points, grabbing 14 rebounds, and also contributing 2 assists as well. And on the other side, Donovan Mitchell led the way for Cleveland, where he scored 31 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists, and had an incredible second half. Most of those points, I'm not sure exactly how many it was, but majority of those points came in the second half. Otherwise, I was pretty underwhelmed with this game. Evan Mobley was all right. Jalen Brunson was all right. Karl Anthony Towns was all right. Nothing great. It was just kind of a meh game. Now moving on to the new look Orlando Magic versus the new look Miami Heat, where this game was very intense and came down to the wire, where ultimately we saw the Orlando Magic winning 125 to 121, led by Paolo Banchero, who scored 24 points, had 11 rebounds, and dished out 1 assist. And on the other side of the ball, Norman Powell finishes with 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists in his debut for the Miami Heat. Big addition for the Orlando Magic, Desmond Bane finished scoring 23 points in this game, but on really bad efficiency, shooting 7 for 18 from the field. But he shot 3 for 6 from 3, which is really good. We also had the Charlotte Hornets take on the Brooklyn Nets, with this game finished in pretty dominating fashion for the Charlotte Hornets, winning 136 to 117, led by Miles Bridges, who had 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists. And rookie Con Knuppel, or however you want to say it, finished with 10 points on 3 for 4 from downtown. And on the other side for the Brooklyn Nets, Nicholas Claxton finished with 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. And rookie Yegor Demon finished with 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists in his debut. Now moving on to what I thought was probably the most disappointing game of the night between the Toronto Raptors and the new look Atlanta Hawks. We saw Toronto walk away easily with the win here as they won 138 to 118, led by RJ Barrett, who had 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. And on the other side, Jalen Johnson for the Atlanta Hawks finished with 22 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Trae Young had a pretty poor game for his standards, where he finished with 22 points on 5 for 14 from the field, and 1 for 7 from 3, which is terrible, and only dishing out 5 assists. And the two biggest additions for the Atlanta Hawks, Kristaps Porzingis and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, finished with 22 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks from Kristaps, which is good. But Nickeil played terribly. He scored 10 points on 2 for 15 from the field. Definitely not what the Atlanta Hawks were looking for, I can tell you that much for free right now. Next up, we have the 76ers taking on the Boston Celtics in Boston. And this one, we saw an absolute nail-biter, where the 76ers ended up walking away winning 117 to 160. Definitely one of the games of the night. Leading the way for the 76ers was Tyrese Maxey, who scored 40 points, had 2 rebounds and 6 assists. But this 40 points ties him with Hal Greer for the most points in franchise history on opening night. But the story of this one, 76ers rookie VJ Edgecombe put up an absolute clinic where he finished with 34 points in his NBA debut. This was the most points scored in an NBA debut this century and the third most ever, only being behind Wilt Chamberlain, who scored 43 points in his debut back in 1959, and Frank Salvi, who scored 35 points back in 1954. What an incredible showcase for the 76ers rookie. And on the other side, Jaylen Brown had 25 points, 6 boards, and 4 assists, and Derek White played like shit. Thank you, Derek White, for making my most improved pick of you look foolish. Next up, we had, which I thought was another absolute shocker, the matchup between the Chicago Bulls and the Detroit Pistons, where we saw the Chicago Bulls walk away with the win 115-111, led by Nikola Vucevic, who finished with 28 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 assists. At one point in this game, the Bulls were up by like 20 points. I swear to God. Such an incredible game from Chicago. And on the other side, for the Detroit Pistons, Cade Cunningham finishes with 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 10 assists. Next up, we had the Memphis Grizzlies versus the New Orleans Pelicans, which was definitely a game of runs because I saw the Pelicans up by a lot of points at one point. But ultimately, the Grizzlies came back to win 128-122, led by Ja Morant, who finished with 35 points, 3 boards, and 3 assists, which I believe is the most points scored in franchise history in an NBA season opener game. And Grizzlies rookie Cedric Coward finishes with 14 points in his debut on 5 for 5 shooting. Yes, the majority of which were out on transition, but that doesn't matter. Points are points. And on the other side for the Pelicans, Zion Williamson led with 27 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. The Milwaukee Bucks then went on to face the Washington Wizards in Milwaukee, where ultimately the Bucks walked away with a 133-120 win over the Wizards, where they were led by Giannis, of course, who finished with 37 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 assists. And on the other side, for the Washington Wizards, Keyshawn George led the way, finishing with 21 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists of his own. And Washington Wizards' 6th overall pick, Trey Johnson, finishes with 16 points in his debut, shooting 4 for 8 from beyond the arc. Pretty impressive debut. Then we move on to the Utah Jazz versus the Los Angeles Clippers, where this one was actually probably the biggest upset of the night, where we saw the Jazz absolutely smoke the Clippers, who were playing pretty healthy, by the way, winning 129-108. And at one point in this game, I swear the Clippers were down 40. The Jazz were led by Walker Kessler, who finished with 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists, shooting 7 for 7 from the field and 2 for 2 from 3. 5th overall pick by the Utah Jazz, rookie Ace Bailey had a terrible NBA debut where he finished with 2 points on 1 for 5 shooting. And leading the way for the Clippers was Ivica Zubac, who finished with 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. And the final game of the night, which again was another absolute great game, the Minnesota Timberwolves took on the Portland Trailblazers in Portland, where the Timberwolves ultimately ended up winning 118-114, led by Anthony Edwards, who scored 41 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. And once again, this 41 points was the most points scored in franchise history in a season opener. And then Jeremy Grant led the way off the bench for Portland, where he finished with 29 points. Oh, that wasn't the final game. Sorry, that was the final game of the night, but there's one more game that I missed. The Phoenix Suns took on the Sacramento Kings, where the Suns ultimately walked away with a 120-116 victory, led by Devin Booker, who scored 31 points, grabbed 5 rebounds, and had 3 assists. And on the other side, the Kings were led by DeMar DeRozan, who finished with 29 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists himself. Now, the leaders for today, we had Anthony Edwards scoring 41 points. Victor Wembanyama grabbed 15 rebounds. Donovan Mitchell dished out 12 assists. Zion Williamson had 5 steals. Jaren Jackson Jr. finished with 6 blocks. Devin Booker, Josh Giddey, and Dante DiVincenzo all had 6 turnovers. And the most 3-point field goals made on the night was Tyrese Maxey, who had 7. But my player of the night ultimately is Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs. Now, night 3 started off really weird. Before we get into any game talks, we have to talk about the biggest scandal of the season, where we saw Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups, and Damon Jones former player, and former assistant coach all get arrested by the FBI due to being involved in gambling. I'm not going to go too much into detail about this because there's a lot to cover, but there is so much content out there. If you are interested about this situation, go have a watch of those. But definitely a weird thing. But with the promotion of sport betting NBA, I don't know why we're shocked. To be honest, there's probably more people doing this crap. If you promote gambling, it's going to further incentivize people to gamble. Stop promoting that crap. It is not good. Gambling shouldn't be legal at all. Anyway, we had only 2 games on this night, so thank God for that. Less to cover. Game 1, we saw the finals rematch between the OKC Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was pretty bored through the majority of this game, as both sides had a lot of injuries. For the Thunder, there was no Cason Wallace, there was no Caruso, there was no Isaiah Joe, there was no J-Dub, and for the Pacers, there was obviously no Tyrese Halliburton, no Miles Turner anymore. Andrew Nembhard went out after the first half. So it was just kind of a pretty boring game to watch for the first 3 quarters. However, this game definitely did not finish being boring, as we went into double overtime again for the OKC Thunder, marking the first time in NBA history that a team has gone, in their first 2 games, has gone into double overtime, where we saw the reigning MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, go off for a career-high 55 points, on 23 for 26 from the free throw line, so you SGA haters, there's that nugget for you. He also had 8 rebounds and 5 assists in this one. Shining star though for the Thunder, AJ Mitchell really stepping into his own so far, as he finished with 26 points, which I believe is a career high for him. Chet Holmgren played like Dookie. Chet Holmgren had a really good first game, really subpar second game. And for the other side of the ball, Benedict Mathurin, a sleeper, originally for the most improved player award, for me anyway, finished with 36 points and 11 rebounds on a lot of free throws as well. I don't have the exact number up in front of me right now, but I will pop it up on the screen. And Spicy P, Pascal Siakam, known as one of the most underrated players in the league, finishes with 32 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 assists of his own. Another great game. So thank God that this game going into the fourth quarter and 2 overtimes was good, because as I said, it was such a snooze fest to begin with. Game 2 though, wow, storylines upon storylines. The Golden State Warriors took on the Denver Nuggets, who hadn't played a game yet, and Golden State, obviously we know, played night 1, resulted in a 137-131 overtime win for the Golden State Warriors, where the Warriors were led by an incredible second half performance from Stephen Curry, who finished with 42 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists. And I believe it was either 35 or 37 of those points came in the second half and overtime respectfully for Steph. Absolutely, though, ruining an incredible season opener from Aaron Gordon, who finished with a crazy 50 points, which ties him 4th all-time for most points scored of any team in a season opener game, who shot 10 for 11 from 3 on a true shooting percentage of, get this, 105.8%, making this the most efficient 50-point game we have ever seen. This was obviously the most points scored by a Nuggets player and a season opener ever for the franchise. This is also Aaron Gordon's first time scoring over 40 points since I believe it was 2017, and he dropped 50 points in one of the most efficient games ever. What an absolutely insane game to watch, and they still lost. Nikola Jokic scored the first triple-double of the season, where he scored 21 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists on a pretty mediocre shooting game from him. Yes, a triple-double is impressive, but what we know from Jokic, this was not a great game for him. Now, the daily leaders for today, points was SGA, who scored 55. Rebounds was Pascal Siakam, who had 15. Assists was Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, who both had 10. Steals was Stephen Curry, Jamal Murray, and Jimmy Butler, who all had 3. Blocks was Jay Huff, who had 2. Turnovers was Benedict Mathurin, who had 4. And 3-point field goal makes was Aaron Gordon, who shot 10 for 11 from 3, as previously mentioned. And my player of the night, I'm going to have 2, because I could not decide between these 2. My first is SGA, obviously, and my second, I just couldn't overlook this game, Aaron Gordon. I'm only just now realizing how long this video is going to be, so I'm going to try and speed through it. Night 4 started with the San Antonio Spurs taking on the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans, where the Spurs walked away with a 120-116 overtime win. Leading the way for the San Antonio Spurs, of course, was Victor Wembanyama, who finished with 29 points, 11 rebounds and 2 assists, with 9 blocks in 32 minutes, fouling out in overtime. Leading the way for the New Orleans Pelicans was, of course, as well, Zion Williamson, who finished with 27, 10, and 7. Next up, we had the Detroit Pistons taking on the Houston Rockets in Houston, where we ultimately saw the Pistons winning 115-111. Cade Cunningham led the way for the Detroit Pistons, finishing with 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists, and Kevin Durant led the way for the Houston Rockets, finishing with 37 points, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist. Then we had the Los Angeles Lakers taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, where the LA Lakers won in convincing fashion 128-110. Led by Luka Doncic, who finished with 49 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists in this one, which has broken the LA Lakers record set by Jerry West for most points in the first 2 games of a season. And when you think about how many greats have played for the Lakers, you realize just how damn impressive this actually is. He has 92 points in his first 2 games in the season, where Jerry West had 81. He's also the 4th player ever whose first 2 games to start a season were 40 plus. Anthony Edwards led the way for the Minnesota Timberwolves with 31. Next up, we had the Milwaukee Bucks taking on the Toronto Raptors, where ultimately we saw the Bucks walking away with the win, winning 122-116. The Bucks were led by yet another incredible game from Giannis Antetokounmpo, who finished with 37 points, 20 rebounds, and 7 assists, and the Raptors were led by Brandon Ingram, who finished with 29 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. The Atlanta Hawks then went on to face the Orlando Magic, and the Hawks ended up coming out of that one with a 111-107 victory. Again, another really close game. Trae Young led the way for the Atlanta Hawks, as he finished with 25, 1, and 6. And Franz Wagner led the way for the Orlando Magic, finishing with 27 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists. The New York Knicks then faced the Boston Celtics, where we saw the Knicks win 105-95. Karl Anthony Towns led the way for the Knicks, finishing with 26 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 assists. And Jaylen Brown led the way for the Celtics, finishing with 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists himself. Again, Derek White, stop making me look like an idiot. Then we had the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Brooklyn Nets, and this game actually ended up being a lot closer than I thought it would, with the Cavaliers winning 131-124. And what's funny about this game is that they had that fan run onto the court. It's actually not funny, it's incredibly dangerous. Don't do that shit. Donovan Mitchell led the way for the Cavaliers, finishing with 33 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists. And Cam Thomas led the way for the Nets, finishing with 33 points, 2 rebounds, and 9 assists himself. Next up, we had the Miami Heat taking on the Memphis Grizzlies, where we saw an absolute blowout, with the Grizzlies winning 146-114. The Heat were led by Bam Adebayo, who had 24 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, but overall it was a very well-balanced scoring effort for Miami, with multiple players scoring in double figures. And leading the way for the Memphis Grizzlies was Jaren Jackson Jr., who finished with 19 points, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist. Next up, another shocking game, the Washington Wizards beating the Dallas Mavericks 117-107, led by an incredible Keyshawn George game, who finished with 34 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists. Anthony Davis led the way for the Mavericks, finishing with 27 points, 13 rebounds, and 4 assists. Next up, we had Portland giving the Golden State Warriors their first loss of the season, where Portland ended up winning 139-119, led by Denny Avdia, who finished with 26 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. The Warriors were of course led by Stephen Curry, who finished with 35 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists, quite literally being the only one who decided to show up on offense today for the Golden State Warriors. Then we had the Sacramento Kings beating the Utah Jazz in a very close game, 105-104, where the Kings were led by Zach LaVine, who finished with splits of 31 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist. The Utah Jazz were led by Lauri Markkanen, who finished with 33 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist. And the final game of the night, we had the Los Angeles Clippers absolutely smoking the Phoenix Suns 129-102, with James Harden leading the way for the Clippers, scoring 30 points, grabbing 7 rebounds and dishing out 7 assists, with Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns finishing with 18 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists. The daily leaders in this one were Luka Doncic with 49 points, Giannis Antetokounmpo with 20 rebounds, Austin Reeves and Drew Holiday both had 11 assists. Steals, we had 23 different players finish with 3 steals, so I am not going to name them all. If you're curious, go look it up. And blocks was, of course, Victor Wembanyama with 9. Turnovers was Stephon Castle with 10, which is fucking terrible. And finally, 3-point field goal makes was Keyshawn George and Steph Curry, who both had 7. And ultimately, my player of the night, Luka Doncic. Night 5 was kind of a boring night, in my opinion, in the NBA. We still had some exciting games, don't get me wrong, but definitely not like those classics. First up, we had the Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the Atlanta Hawks, where the Thunder ended up winning 117-100, led by Chet Holmgren, who finished with 31 points, 11 rebounds, and 1 assist. For a very incredible game. This is what I mean with Chet. First game was really good. Second game was terrible. Third game back to really good. He's just got to find that consistency. And the Hawks were led by Trae Young, who finished with 15 points, 4 rebounds, and 10 assists. Game 2, we had the Philadelphia 76ers taking on the Charlotte Hornets in a very intense battle, where the Philadelphia 76ers ultimately ended up walking away with a 125-121 victory over the Hornets. Tyrese Maxey led the way for the Sixers, finishing with 28 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists, and LaMelo Ball led the way for the Charlotte Hornets, finishing with a near triple-double, 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists. Then we had the Memphis Grizzlies taking on the Indiana Pacers, and ultimately the Grizzlies ended up smacking the Pacers 128-103. The Grizzlies were led by rookie Cedric Coward, who finished with 27 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists on 6 for 6 from 3. This dude is looking like he's going to be a serious perimeter threat in the NBA going forward. And leading the way for the Pacers was Benedict Mathurin, who finished with 26 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists. Then we had the Denver Nuggets beating the Phoenix Suns 133-111. Again, just quite a boring game, but the Nuggets were led by Nikola Jokic, who dropped 14 points, 14 rebounds, and 15 assists. Jokic so far through his first couple games really does not look to be a great scorer so far. His rebounding, of course, is still great. His assists, his passing, his playmaking is obviously still really good. God, my eyes are not used to staring at that light. It's making me blink heaps. I promise I'm not high. And then leading the way for the Phoenix Suns was Devin Booker, who finished with 31 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists, but he also had 9 turnovers. Next up, again, we had the Chicago Bulls winning against the Orlando Magic, winning 110-98. The Chicago Bulls are looking pretty good so far, I cannot lie. The Bulls were led by Josh Giddey, who finished with 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. And the Magic were led by Paolo Banchero, who finished with 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 1 assist. Now the leaders for night... What night is this? For night 5, we had Chet Holmgren and Devin Booker, each having 31. Rebounds was Nikola Jokic with 14. Assists was also Nikola Jokic with 15. Steals was Trae Jones with 5. Blocks was a 6-way tie between Paolo Banchero, John Concha, Ryan Dunn, Santi Aldama, Muhammad Gay, and Jarris Walker, all with 2. Turnovers, as I said before, was Devin Booker, who had 9. And 3-point field goal makes was Chet Holmgren and Cedric Coward, each having 6. Player of the night for me was Chet Holmgren. Night 6, we get started off with the San Antonio Spurs taking on the Brooklyn Nets, where I was actually pleasantly surprised with how the Nets played in this game. Their defense, especially in the first half, looked insane. Well, first 3 quarters, I should say. It was incredible. It was insane. But ultimately, the Spurs ended up walking away with a 118-107 victory, led by, of course, Victor Wembanyama, who absolutely stuffed the stat sheet, finishing with 31 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and 6 blocks, becoming the first player ever to finish the first 3 games of a regular season scoring 100-plus points, grabbing 40-plus rebounds, and totaling 15-plus blocks. Insane stuff. I want to quickly shout out Dylan Harper, the rookie on the Spurs, for having an incredible game himself. I thought he played better than Stephon Castle in this one. He scored 20 points, grabbed 6 rebounds, had 8 assists, doing a little bit of everything on 8 for 11 shooting. Cam Thomas of the Brooklyn Nets was freaking phenomenal in this one. He scored 40 points on incredible efficiency and got to the foul line a shit ton. Cam Thomas really impressed me, considering he got elbowed in the head and he was bleeding for like the whole game. Really impressed me, especially with that dribble package into that step back three in the corner. That was nice. Oh my god, that was sexy. Then next up, we had the Detroit Pistons taking on the Boston Celtics, where we saw the Pistons winning 119 to 113, causing the Celtics to fall to 0-3, and this is the first time this has happened since the 2013-2014 regular season. This is definitely not something that Boston Celtics fans are used to seeing. The Detroit Pistons were led by Jalen Duren, who scored 24 points and grabbed 18 rebounds and dished out 1 assist. And on the other side, someone help that man. Jaylen Brown finished with 41 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. Maybe I should change my pick for most improved player, because Derek White, through the first 3 games, has been ass. Please step it up, Derek White. Please. Next up, we had the Charlotte Hornets taking on the Washington Wizards, where ultimately Charlotte walked away with a dominating win of 139 to 113. The Charlotte Hornets were led by LaMelo Ball, who becomes the second player in the NBA this season to drop a triple-double, finishing with 38 points, 13 rebounds, and 13 assists. I want to also shout out rookie Concanupo, I still don't know how to say his last name, who had a really good game, finishing with 20 points on great efficiency. Leading the way for the Wizards was CJ McCollum, who finished with 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. Then we move on to the Miami Heat versus the New York Knicks, where ultimately we saw the Heat walk away with the win, 115 to 107, handing the Knicks their first loss of the season. The Heat were led by Norman Powell, who finished with 29 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. Jalen Brunson led the way for the Knicks, scoring 37 points, grabbing 5 rebounds, and dishing out 8 assists. Oh, sorry, it was 6 assists, not 8 assists. Karl Anthony Towns didn't score a lot, but he grabbed 18 rebounds, so I thought that was worth a mention. Then we had the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Milwaukee Bucks, where ultimately we saw Cleveland walk away with the win, 118 to 113, giving the Bucks their first loss of the season. Evan Mobley of the Cavaliers finished with 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. And leading the way for the Bucks was, of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who finished with 40 points, 14 rebounds, and 9 assists. Giannis is playing incredibly this season, man. Really making my MVP pick look pretty good, although I'm not sure on my MVP pick anymore. It could go to anybody. Then we had the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Indiana Pacers, where the Minnesota Timberwolves finished winning 114 to 110. The Timberwolves were led by Julius Randle, who finished with 31 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists. And Pascal Siakam led the way for the Pacers with a near triple-double of 33 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists. Anthony Edwards unfortunately did leave this game early in the first quarter due to right hamstring tightness. So hopefully it's nothing major for him. Get well soon. Then we had the Los Angeles Lakers taking on the Sacramento Kings, where ultimately we saw the Lakers winning 127 to 120. Luka Doncic was ruled out before this game for at least a week due to a couple injuries, one being a finger sprain and the other being a lower leg contusion. So hopefully he comes back nice and strong. However, Austin Reeves put on an absolute clinic, finishing with 51 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists, absolutely putting the Lakers on his back with no Luka and no LeBron. He also shot the ball really, really well and only had 2 turnovers. Leading the way for the Kings was Zach LaVine, who finished with 32 points and 4 rebounds. Man, shout out Austin Reeves. He's really making me look bad for saying that the Lakers need to trade him. I still think that they do, and all he's doing right now is increasing his trade value, but man, what a guy he has been this season. Then we had the Dallas Mavericks taking on the Toronto Raptors, where we finally saw the Mavericks win their first game, winning 139 to 129. The Mavericks were led by Anthony Davis, who scored 25 points, grabbed 10 boards, and had 3 assists. And Cooper Flagg finally had the game we were waiting for, where he scored 22 points on 8 for 14 shooting. Leading the way for the Raptors was Scotty Barnes, who finished with 33 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. Then finally, we had the LA Clippers taking on the Portland Trail Blazers, where we saw the Clippers walk away with the win, 114 to 107. The Clippers were led by Kawhi Leonard, who finished with 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists. And the Trailblazers were led by Denny Avdia, who finished with 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. Now, the daily leaders for Night 6 Austin Reeves for points, who had 51. Rebounds was a three-way tie between Jalen Duren, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert, all having 18. Assists was LaMelo Ball and James Harden, who each had 13. Steals was Derek White, who had 4. Blocks, of course, Victor Wembanyama with 6. Turnovers was James Harden, who had 7. And three-point field goals makes was Austin Reeves, who had 6. And ultimately, my player of the night, Austin Reeves. Career high. Of course it's going to be Austin Reeves. The final night of opening week definitely did not disappoint. Night 7, we get started off with a matchup between the Houston Rockets and the Brooklyn Nets, where the Houston Rockets walked away easily, winning 137 to 109. The Houston Rockets were led by Alperen Şengün, who finished with 21 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. But an all-around very, very well-balanced scoring diet from the Houston Rockets. Leading the way for the Brooklyn Nets was Day'Ron Sharpe, who finished with 17 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 assists. Following his 40-point game, Cam Thomas really did not play well. I'm pretty sure he only had like 9 points. So definitely a funny one. Next up, we had the San Antonio Spurs taking on the Toronto Raptors, where we saw the Spurs ultimately walk away, winning 121 to 103. Led by, of course, Victor Wembanyama, who finished with 24 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 assists, and only had 1 block. I was really, really worried because he did not get that block until late in the fourth quarter that he wasn't going to get a block in this game. And if he didn't get a block in that game, that would have ended his streak of 88 straight games with at least 1 block, which I believe is the 4th most ever. The Raptors were led by RJ Barrett, who finished with 25 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists. But Colin Murray-Boyles, the rookie who was picked number 9 overall by the Toronto Raptors, I want to give a huge shout out to. He scored 19 points on 7 for 13 shooting and 3 for 5 from outside, and I thought he played incredible defense on Victor Wembanyama, helping force Wemby to get his most turnovers in a game this season so far. Pretty sure he had 4. Great defense from him, and I really think the Raptors have figured out a way to slow Wemby down. Victor Wembanyama only shot 8 field goals in this one, and he made 7 of them. Incredible efficiency there. And he was 10 for 10 from the foul line, so he was pretty aggressive, but he definitely needs to be more aggressive. I think Victor Wembanyama just needs to learn how to handle double teams a little bit better, and then once he manages that, he's quite literally going to be unstoppable. Next up, we had the undefeated OKC Thunder going up against the Dallas Mavericks, where ultimately the Thunder remain undefeated, winning a close one, 101 to 94. Another loss for Dallas. This puts them at 1 win and 3 losses. Nico Harrison, you're starting to look even more stupid right now. I didn't think you could get more stupid, but you definitely look like a raging buffoon, trading away Luka Doncic. SGA, of course, led the way for the Oklahoma City Thunder, finishing with 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 8 assists. Overall, a pretty lacking game from the reigning MVP, but doesn't matter, they got the win. Anthony Davis led the way for the Mavericks, finishing with 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists. But Cooper Flagg definitely had his worst game as a pro. Against that Thunder defense, he really struggled, putting up only 2 points on 1 for 9 from the field. Cooper Flagg's looking very inconsistent at the moment, but I definitely think that once he finds his groove, he will be off and running. He'll be flying, so it's fine. Cooper Flagg, I'm not surprised you struggled against the Thunder. That Thunder defense, as I said before, is the greatest defense we've seen this century. Then we had the Portland Trailblazers going up against the LA Lakers, where ultimately we saw the Trailblazers walking away with a 122 to 108 victory there. The Trailblazers were led by Drew Holiday, who finished with a good 24 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. Shaedon Sharpe, what's going on, man? What are you doing? Disappointing start to the season, dude. 6 for 16 from the field in this one. 0 for 6 from 3? What are you doing? Really struggling, and it's disappointing to see because Shaedon Sharpe has such great potential, and I really want to see him bloom, but it's not looking like he is so far. But man, leading the way for the LA Lakers again, without Luka and without LeBron, Austin Reeves absolutely shines, dropping 41 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists. Every single Laker game this season, we've had someone explode. Obviously, Luka Doncic in the first 2 and Austin Reeves in these previous 2. Austin Reeves now in the last 2 games has a combined 92 points. 51 last game, 41 this game. Are you serious, Austin Reeves? You're really making me regret saying that the Lakers need to trade you. Holy crap. Then we had a very boring game overall between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Detroit Pistons, where the Cavaliers ended up absolutely bending over the Detroit Pistons and beating them senseless, winning 116-95, led by Donovan Mitchell, who finished with 35 points, 1 rebound, and 2 assists. And the Pistons were led by Cade Cunningham for a staggering stat line of, wait for it, 12 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. And yes, this was their top performing stat line and their top performing player. The Pistons really struggled. Really struggled. Now, moving on to a game where history was made between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Orlando Magic, where Philly remains undefeated, winning 136 to 124. And that 136 is super impressive considering the Magic are known for their defense. Tyrese Maxey puts up another 40 ball, dropping 43 points, 4 rebounds, and 8 assists. Rookie VJ Edgecombe dropped 26 points in this one too. And this, between these two men, is the most combined points through 3 games ever by a backcourt since starters were tracked in 1970. They have scored 186 points combined through 3 games. What the hell is going on in Philadelphia? Leading the way for the Magic was Paolo Banchero, who dropped 32 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists himself. The Magic are looking a little disappointing this season. I can't lie. Now, a very, very surprising team, the Chicago Bulls taking on the Atlanta Hawks, and the Chicago Bulls still remain undefeated, winning 128 to 123 against the new-look Hawks. Led by Nikola Vucevic, who drops a near triple-double, going 17 points, 17 rebounds, and 9 assists. Trae Young led the way for the Hawks, finishing with 21 points, 3 rebounds, and 17 assists. I don't know what the Bulls are on this year, but it seems like Martis Buzelis saying that they're ready to compete for a championship doesn't seem so crazy right now. Then we had the battle of straight ass so far this season. Both of these teams coming into this game were without a win. The 0-3 Boston Celtics against the 0-3 New Orleans Pelicans, where we finally saw the Boston Celtics win a game this season, winning and absolutely smashing the Pelicans 122-90, winning by 32 points. The Celtics had a very well-rounded scoring effort, but were led by Anthony Simons, who off the bench finished with 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 assist. And then leading the way for the Pelicans, who were without Zion Williamson, I will say, finishes with 22 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists himself. Trey Murphy shot the ball terribly in this one. He has to be better. He simply has to be better, especially if Zion's not there. Then we had a contender for Game of the Night between the Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns. Now, why are these two teams in a contender for Game of the Night? The Utah Jazz ended up walking away with a 138-134 overtime victory, so it was very close, and the Jazz were led by Lauri Markkanen, who drops a career-high 51 points to go along with 14 rebounds and 3 assists. The Phoenix Suns were led by Devin Booker, who finishes with 34 points, 5 rebounds, and 10 assists. Ace Bailey is really continuing to struggle. It's going to be interesting to see if he can find his stride, find his groove, because a lot of people after preseason were hyping him up, talking about maybe he could take the Rookie of the Year award away from Cooper Flagg. But so far, I don't even have Cooper Flagg as my Rookie of the Year. Then we had a matchup between the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Keep in mind the Timberwolves are without Anthony Edwards at this point for at least a couple of weeks. So the Nuggets ended up walking away with a 127-114 victory, although this game did feel a little bit closer than that. The Denver Nuggets were led by another 40-point game, this time from Jamal Murray, who finishes with 43 points on 16 for 29 from the field. And Nikola Jokic also contributed yet another triple-double, where he finishes with 25 points, 19 rebounds, and 10 assists, becoming the third player ever, alongside Russell Westbrook and Oscar Robertson, to record 3 consecutive triple-doubles to start the season. Nikola Jokic may not be scoring, but man, he's still getting boards and passing the ball well. It's going to be interesting to see what Denver's going to be able to do this year. And finally, the last game of the night we had the Golden State Warriors, who are looking really good, by the way, going up against the Memphis Grizzlies, where we ultimately saw the Warriors walking away with a 131 to 118 win. The Warriors were led by Jonathan Kuminga, of all people, who's really silencing his critics so far this season. He finishes scoring 25 points, grabbing 10 rebounds, and dishing out 4 assists. Steph Curry had a pretty mediocre game. I think he only had 16 points or something, but that's not because he was just shooting terribly. He just wasn't shooting. And then leading the way for the Grizzlies was Ja Morant, who had 23 points, 3 rebounds, and 9 assists. Now, your daily leaders for today, you had Lauri Markkanen with a game with a night-high 51 points. Nikola Jokic, 19 rebounds. Trae Young dished out 17 assists. Royce O'Neal stole the ball 5 times. We had a 4-way tie with blocks between Walker Kessler, Chet Holmgren, Jaden McDaniels, and Mohamed Gay, all having 4. Turnovers was Austin Reeves, who had 8. 3-point field goal makes was Lauri Markkanen and Anthony Simons, who had 6. And the player of the night, overall, Lauri Markkanen. Now, fun fact, this opening week has been the biggest scoring explosion we have ever seen, where we saw the most 40-point games in an opening night by far. We had 16 different 40-point games in this opening week alone, beating the previous record, which was 7, which happened in 2009 and 2022. And we also saw the most 50-point games in an opening week, beating the record, which was previously 2, and this was in 3 separate years actually, 1961, 1989, and 2016. And this week, we have had 4 50-point games. Absolutely crazy start to the NBA season. The NBA Players of the Week have been announced. We had Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs for the Western Conference, and out east, to no one's surprise, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Victor Wembanyama finishes on a perfect 3-0 record, finishing with 33.3 points a game, 13.3 rebounds a game, and 6 blocks a game in a week, which is crazy. And then out east, Giannis Antetokounmpo finishes with a 2-1 record, averaging 36 points a game, 16 rebounds, and 7 assists. Very well deserving for both of these men. If you take a look at this graphic here, you can see the current standings out east, where the top 6 seeds, we see the Chicago Bulls at 3-0, the Philadelphia 76ers at 3-0, then Cleveland at 3-1, the Hornets with 2-1, the Heat with 2-1, and the Knicks are also 2-1. And then as you can see here, from 7 all the way to 15, this is what the rest of the play-in bracket looks like, and those who are currently out of the playoffs. We're obviously still in the opening season, in the opening week, so this is very, very likely to change. And then here is the graphic for out west, where we see the Spurs and the Thunder both going a perfect 4-0. The Golden State Warriors are there next at 3-1, then the Jazz at 2-1, and then the Clippers at 2-1, and then the Nuggets at 2-1. And here you can see again the play-in picture so far, followed by the people who are currently out of the playoffs. I'm now going to go over the week 1 per game leaders and total leaders. So week 1 leaders per game stats, you have Giannis Antetokounmpo averaging the most points at 36. He also averages the most rebounds at 16 a game. Assists is Nikola Jokic averaging 11.7. Steals is Trae Jones averaging 3.3. Blocks, to no one's surprise, is Victor Wembanyama averaging 4.8. Turnovers is Stephon Castle, who averages 6.3, and 3-point field goal makes Aaron Gordon and Tyrese Maxey, both averaging 5.5. Then the totals leaders, meaning the total amount of points, rebounds, whatever they've accumulated over the week. Points is led by Austin Reeves and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, both having 143 points total. Rebounds is Victor Wembanyama, who totaled 55. Trae Young leads for assists with a total of 38. Steals is Trae Jones, totaling 10 steals. Blocks, Victor Wembanyama, who totaled 19. Turnovers is Stephon Castle, who totaled 25. And 3-point field goal makes overall was, again to no one's surprise, Stephen Curry, who NBA season this year, I'm excited for what happens. I'm predicting a 70 ball at some point this season. Let me know if you agree with that. But yeah, I know this was a long one. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in and watching. Please, as I mentioned before in the intro, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It is my goal to hit 50 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would greatly appreciate it. This is the only type of video weekly recap that I'm going to do like this. Going forward, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm not going to spoil it. But yeah, so stay tuned, look forward to that, and I hope you all have a blessed day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Rolling slow, yeah.